So let's dive into the background vocals on this track. Background vocals are an integral part of most songs, especially in this one. And as you can see here, when I scroll down, these cut up sections of block waveforms are the background vocals. There's a bunch right there, there's more towards the middle, and they just keep going. So I'll show you how to get the background vocals to do their work without crowding the lead vocal or obscuring instrumentation. As a rule of thumb, usually you would cut some lows off the backgrounds, cut some highs, and add a good amount of compression most of the time to background vocals. But since this song, they take a lead role, you can't really do that. Let's play a little of it. See, that section, they're actually taking a lead vocal role. But if I move up in the song, this part and this part, they're ooh tracks, I believe. Let's go through them, solo them out. There's some male vocal parts and some female vocal parts. And right here, there is a BV male low. There's a BV male low 2, which is a double, background female 1, background female 2, and so on. Let's solo these guys out and play a little bit for you.
Piercing shadow, blazing bright, hurting home as the light falls.
That's one group. Let's solo up another group down here towards the bottom.
Piercing shadow,
You see, as I add, they make a big difference.
blazing bright, hurting home as the light from light.
Beautiful sounding background vocals, and they have to have that high end because in this part of the song, they are the lead vocal, actually. And a lot of theory of thought is, for background vocals, is to EQ them duller. They can take a severe amount of compression to separate them more from the lead vocal in the track. But in this case, they are really the lead vocal. So you have to process them like a lead vocal. Let me jump into the plugins and show you how I'm processing them. First in the signal chain is the oral exciter to give them some air and high end, contrary to what you usually do to background vocals to make them separate themselves from the track. Next, believe it or not, almost 12 dB of a high frequency shelf, and the low pass filter here set at about 132. So this plugin contains 12 dB of boost and a high pass filter. Sounds like a lot, but for this it really works. Next plugin up would be the de-esser. Now you can see how much high end I was adding before this. 12 dB of a shelf and the oral exciter have to have a de-esser in the chain. Next down would be the LA2A compressor, tube compressor to warm it up a little. Then last plugin in the signal chain would be this side chained limiter that's being keyed from the lead vocal by this input to the compressor. A side chain input. Very cool technique, which I'm going to show you how that works. That further separates the background vocals from the lead if you want it. The way it works is when the lead vocal is singing, the side chain input to this compressor compresses the background vocals. So when the lead vocal is singing, the backgrounds get compressed from the side chain input. We will get into the routing and setup of this in more detail later in the video. So these backgrounds are all actually getting routed through a master aux and then getting processed. So all of these tracks, everything, all the backgrounds are getting sent via a bus right here to this aux master track and being processed. So all the tracks are getting affected by these plugins at once instead of individually putting plugins on some of the tracks. But I do have a few on individually. There's a limiter here. There's a limiter there. A trim plugin to bring down some of the level, which is really not needed anymore if you have a newer Pro Tools with clip gain. Let's play a little bit of the track and bypass the effects in and out. Kind of subtle, but it's giving it the air and the upper harmonic on the BVs. Now this Mac DSP plugin is getting almost 12 dB of a high-end shelf. You're really going to hear this. Big difference in dark. Let's try it again. One of the ways of thinking is normally to darken the backgrounds, put a high-pass shelf in, separate them from the track. But in this case, I'm adding high-end, making them bright, making them stand out and sound like a lead. But with that much high-end on them, the de-esser is a must. I'll show you what that is doing. Look at the gain reduction meter here and look how much de-essing is happening. More than 12 dB of de-essing. Let's listen without it. Extreme amount of sibilance. You can hear how much there is without it. You have to use a de-esser when adding that much high end to background vocals or lead vocal. Let's see what the limiter's doing. About 2-3 dB of compression. Let's look at the limiter sidechain. Let me activate the lead vocal and turn it on so I can show you how this is working. Let's activate the lead vocal track and bring back all the plugins and processing. Okay, now you can see in the lead vocal track, I have a send here from the lead vocal track, which is going to the sidechain input of the limiter on the background vocal track. Here's the limiter on the backup master track. It's getting keyed from this send input from the lead vocal track, from here. The more I change that, send will alter the threshold of the limiter. Let's play a little bit of the lead vocal ad-lib and you can see how the gain reduction works. So if you look at the gain reduction meter, nothing's happening until he starts singing lead vocal ad-libs. Right there. Almost looks like the plugin on the lead vocal track, but it isn't. It's getting keyed from the lead vocal track. Let me now bring up the send from the lead vocal track and the limiter on the background vocal master. A little tip here, plugin focus mode. This little red button, when it's not enabled, lets you view more than one plugin in the window at one time. It'll leave this plugin on when the red button is off. Plugin focus mode. Okay, now bring up the send and play some of the track. I'm going to mute it first and then really increase it in order to show you the difference in the gain reduction. You notice here there's no limiting happening because this is muted. I'll undo it now and you'll see when he starts doing his ad-libs, the ad-libs will limit the background vocals and tuck them in under his lead. And the more I increase the send to the sidechain input, you can see the gain reduction increase. you can see as I was increasing the send level from the lead vocal track to the sidechain input of the background vocal limiter was actually changing the threshold of it. So as the lead vocal was singing, the background vocals were coming down in level around the lead. Let me move on to show you some of the effects I'm using on the backgrounds. Now going to solo them up, because all of these backgrounds are being sent to one aux track.
Piercing shadow, blazing bright.
And you can hear that stereo delay. I like to use a ping pong delay on backgrounds. That would be right here. So I'm sending from our master, all our tracks to our master. I'm adding this ping pong delay. And I have no reverb on these. They're actually dry except for that delay. I have to keep my returns at the top of the track. It's just an old trait for me mixing on analog console, and that would be, the delay would be right here. And it would be this Sound Toys plugin with the ping pong delay. So it bounces back and forth from side to side with a little bit of feedback. No cuts on the EQs, and it's at 250 milliseconds, and it's bouncing back and forth. I'll play that again for you. Hear how it pans left and right? Talking about panning, these are panned hard, left, right. They're all panned pretty hard left and right, except for I left one in the middle to give it a little center dominance. And on these other sections, these I kind of left in the middle a little bit. You see this is 51% over, 99% over, and 100%. So it's in a kind of a stereo setting, this one part and this one part. They do have a little bit of a center image on them. On solo. And I really like the stereo delay because it doesn't clutter the center image of the mix. And as a finishing touch, if you want, you can add a bit of plate reverb or another effect of your liking. And just to recap, this song, the background vocals are an integral part of the song, and they are like a lead vocal. But as a rule, you know, most of the time you can dull the background vocals out a little, take off a little low end with a high-pass filter, and have them sit behind the lead. And actually, the side chain technique of compression from the lead vocal is a great technique to try and experiment with. So go ahead and try some of these techniques on your own tracks, and with some effort and some experimentation, you will be surprised with the results you can get. That's it for this video segment. Let's move on to the next one. Thanks so much for watching and listening.